All right, welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast, the PGA edition. I am your host, Bryan. I am joined, as always, by Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSU Ram, and Colin Davey. Colin, what's happening, man?
Man, I'm looking at the calendar. We got it's another major coming up next week. I'm itching for it by now. I'm excited. Hopefully, all have been stockpiling a bunch of qualifier tickets. Piling up since it's been 3 weeks, 3 months since the last time. So I'm getting motivated for another shot at a millionaire pot. I don't know, Pete, how are you doing? How's your prep looking for U.S. Open? Rumor has it you're actually going, in person.
Yeah, so I'll be going to the U.S. Open for a day or two, and definitely excited. Need some redemption. The Masters was set up so well, and then Ricky just melted on Sunday, so that hurt. But hoping to have a good major here, and golf season, we're right in the thick of it. So definitely need a bounce back week after last week, hopefully this is a good week to get some good momentum heading into a major on the DFS side.
Yeah, somehow I think we're all looking for a bounce back this week.
Right. Yeah. So let's actually take a couple moments to discuss last week. It was a tough one at the Memorial. We'll obviously spend quite a bit of time on this week's St. Jude Classic, but let's just look back. I think that we've been consistently on the bandwagon of DJ is the best golfer in the world, and Rahm is probably number 2 right now. And unfortunately, both of those guys missed the cut. Just absolutely brutal. If you had a high exposure to those guys, you probably were not doing so well this weekend. Obviously, Duffner ended up being the play at 87 on DK, ended up winning the tournament. But also some pretty good picks in the higher range if you pivoted away from DJ and Rahm. So we can talk about that in game theory, all that stuff, but we could also just complain and lament our lineups and look ahead. Colin, I got smashed. We were talking previously before we started the pod that we all got smashed. So just a tough week. It's obviously hard to predict that both DJ and Rahm are going to miss the cut in a single week, but the sports have variance, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, normally that's the type of thing you look for because you knew they're going to be chalk going in. Any time that Ricky does well, that usually doesn't bode well for anyone here in the podcast. The standard fade Ricky watermark usually applies.
Except when we had him all in the Masters.
Yeah, with a couple notable exceptions, which I'm still really upset about. But yeah, that means I really despite them missing the cut and them being the highest who owned, it was generally, I thought, pretty chalky at the top. Ricky did well, Justin Thomas did well, even a couple of the lesser names and some of the 20%ers did well. My contrarian picks didn't pan out, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, just some days, some weeks it's not your week. It's probably with golf, it's about 1 in 5 if you go a real high risk, high reward, where it's just sweep across the board. But what are you going to do? That's you got to take risk. I don't mind any of it.
Yep, it was tough. Some of the contrarian plays definitely missed, and even some of the guys that seemed to be in a good spot. I don't know how much you guys had of Rafa Cabrera Bello, but obviously a really tough round from him. So you could say that the sharp plays hit, but really when just one of DJ or Rahm misses the cut, it really just shifts the whole balance of lineups for that weekend. And if both do, then really, if you faded them, you're in a good spot. Pete, any thoughts on last week?
Extra tilting that Rahm and DJ missed. It was just one of those weeks where I really like Justin Thomas, and there's a couple other guys I like that did well, but then there's just too many, Rahm and DJ lineups. And then I had one other guy who missed in some lineups, and that was Horschel. Played him in some cash too, which he had a really bad round.
Yeah.
So it is what it is at this point. But
any regrets, Pete? Do you think?
Yeah, maybe too much chalk. I faded Speed completely, which I guess I've been doing for a while now. And maybe that was it's hard to say what was the right thing to do with the studs. It's easy to be results oriented. I did have some Matsuyama. He didn't even pan out at all, really. At least he made the cut, but. Yeah, it was a challenging week. I had a lot of Adam Scott. That was actually my heaviest position. So at least in that regard, I was good. But he ended up being, somewhat chalky too, which was expected. So challenging week. I'd have to think a little bit more about what outside of the obvious ones, like obviously being results oriented. Fading Horschel seems really good, but a lot of the guys that I would have gone to as pivots didn't work out as well. So it was one of those weeks where I think it was a challenging spot, and from a process standpoint, probably still need to focus a little bit more on being just a bit more contrarian.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And I do want to talk about some of these guys, like you mentioned, Spieth, that we've been fading him quite a bit lately. I think we've all been on that train, but he has played a little bit better lately. He notably has gone back to his old putter over the last 2 weeks and has played well. So I definitely want to talk about him and some of the guys. We'll talk about DJ and Rahm, but they aren't in this week's field in St. Jude Classic. So I think we'll probably save that for next week when we go deep dive into all of these guys for the U.S. Open, which I'm excited about. So we'll save that. Instead, let's pivot to St. Jude Classic, which is this week's tournament. This one takes place in Memphis, Tennessee. The course is TPC Southwind, which it has been there since 1989. So we have quite a bit of data on it. Recent winners, Daniel Berger won last year, but there were some notable names that finished right behind him. Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Steve Stricker, Fabian Gomez the year before, Ben Crane, Harris English, DJ, rounding it out. DJ obviously not in this field. But yeah, we can talk about sort of what fits here, but you had mentioned that Phil is actually not playing the U.S. Open, so I did want to get that ahead of this. His daughter's graduating, so he's going to miss the U.S. Open, and so there's no warm up for him. This is sort of his last tournament for the next couple of weeks. But Colin, let's talk about St. Jude Classic, TPC Southwind. What sort of course is it? What sort of players do well here?
Seems pretty standard to me. It's a par 70, rates out as like accuracy and GIR are the only thing that kind of hit year over year. It almost like played like a different course in 2012 and 2013 a little bit, with accurate earth distance like being penalized a little bit less, but like I'll look into that a little bit more. But everything just kind of seems like it rates out as a standard par 70 accuracy and GIR course. Not going to overthink it too much this week. Pete, how about you? Well, especially with the whole, like, and I love to bring this up every pre-major event, what makes us different as kind of like a tune-up, given that the field actually is a little bit weaker at the top, and maybe there's not as much of that tune-up factor.
Well, there's some for sure, obviously the top end guys, and it's hard to analyze. I mean, Phil last year, mentioned that he was hitting shots for Augusta, and I'm sure certain guys are thinking about what aspect of their game, especially the top end guys, they need to work on the most, or they want to practice before the U.S. Open to make sure they're ready. It's definitely an impact, but it's hard to kind of take advantage of. The one thing for sure is anyone who might be a withdrawal risk, I definitely am interested in fading them. I can't think of anyone right now that comes to mind specifically, but that's something I'm definitely looking to do.
I also I'm curious, Colin, your thoughts on this. We talk the tournament before every major over the last year and a half that we've done this pod. We talked the week before about how guys could potentially play a little bit different. They might try to hit different shots to get ready. The withdrawal risk is its own thing, but really I'm curious about the shots and just playing differently, trying to set their game up for next week. Because there's a really big difference between these two courses. TPC Southwind, as you mentioned, is more of an accuracy course. And next week, Erin Hills is like one of the longest courses ever played at a major, if not the longest course. We'll obviously get into that in all of our breakdowns. But an accuracy course right before maybe the longest course in major history seems like it might be hard to really actually gear up for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, and that's why I guess inclined to ignore that angle. Yeah. At least something like with Shell and the Houston Open, they're pretty explicitly about making it a Masters-friendly tune-up course because it's going to be played on the same course and you know what you're getting into. So it's kind of like it sets that practice tone really nicely. With the U.S. Open, with a venue that changes every single time, normally U.S. Open, I think, leans a little bit more accuracy because they grow out the rough and they don't make it as long, whereas this one is just set up to be like basically Torrey Pines South almost, where it's 7,800 yards or something insane. And I'm with you. I don't know how you can try to tune up on an accuracy course by trying to drive the ball 350 every single time. I don't know. I don't see that happening as much. I see, and given that it's also like a little bit weaker field at the top, I think there are plenty of. I mean, the only notable guy that's trying to qualify, I think, still is Steve Stricker. He has not gotten into the U.S. Open yet. Correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, he has not.
Okay, then he's the only one that I think has the motivation angle here. Other than that, I'm kind of.
Or wait, he just did, I think.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Hold on. Yeah, he just did. Let's see here. Yeah, he just did. He went 67-65 at the Memphis section of the qualify for next week's U.S. Open. He's one of 9 players to qualify out of Memphis.
All right, so maybe I don't know. Maybe the motivation angle isn't there. I don't. We'll get into that.
He's still tuning up though.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been really good lately too.
He has. University of Illinois product. Have to get happy about that. I don't know what to. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's tough to try to practice long shots in this course.
Yeah, Pete, I'm on Colin's side here that I think we just ignore the fact that it's before the U.S. Open. Do you think that that's a bad call?
I mean, there's going to be specific things I'm looking for. Like I mentioned, I don't have any examples right now where I'm like, ooh, there's a little extra withdrawal risk here with a guy who might want to get out to the U.S. Open early. But I'm just going to pay extra attention to that. And, one thing I think is really important is make sure you're up for sure before this tournament goes live. There's just a little bit more risk before these majors and some funky stuff seems to happen. So I'm just going to pay attention to that. But, yeah, in terms of overall analysis, there's nothing I have a ton of conviction on where I can say, hey, this for sure, I think is an angle that you should take into account and deviate from your normal process. I don't have anything like that this week. So I think you should basically move on as usual, take it on like any other week, but just be a little more wary of any withdrawal risk and definitely make sure you're up before lineup lock.
And being up before lineup lock is going to be fun. Lineup lock this week, 6 a.m. Eastern time. So – yeah. So Colin's
just going to stay up all night.
Yeah. It's easy for me to, I'm not waking up. I'm just staying up.
Yeah. 3 a.m. is a little better than 4 a.m. 3 a.m. I can make. 4 a.m. you're starting to push it. So we'll see on my side.
For sure. All right. Let's dive into the players for this week. The most expensive guy headlined by him. He obviously played well last week. Ricky Fowler, he's at $12K on DraftKings. Brooks Koepka, Adam Scott, Molinari, Phil Mickelson are the guys that are all 10K and above. Really, this is sort of a weak field. We have guys like Billy Horschel, like these guys like Scott Piercy's 85. I mean, these guys really below the top guys are not as good as usually we see in that range in a week. So I think it's going to be a little bit harder to go stars and scrubs just because the scrubs are more scrubby than usual. But let's start at the top, who we think is going to be the chalk. Ricky does lead all players with implied odds of 11.1% to win the tournament, and he has some of the highest ownership. Really because of his recent form, the odds, and his just name recognition. So, Colin, I'll kick to you first here. We talked about our dealings with Ricky and his ownership, but in 12K is expensive, but it's sort of hard to really take stands on other guys this week,
Maybe hard for you. I came in prepped with my hot takes ready for this week. All right.
We got some of our guys right in the range of some nice price tags. I mean, we have some vintage Colin Davey plays.
Are you guys ready for some double barrel like truth takes right here?
Oh,
let's do it.
All right. Francesco Molinari, in my opinion, is a top 5 golfer in the world right now.
I don't know if I think he's top 5, but I love Molinari.
So I'm looking at all the people I'd take him over.
I can name 5 guys that I'd rather have than Molinari, I think.
Okay, it goes a DJ Rahm, Rory for sure.
I think you have to say Spieth now too. I mean, it's hard.
No, I wouldn't say Spieth. I'm really he's getting a strength a second place finish of the BMW PGA is really vaulting him over a lot of people right now. For
No,
me.
that was a great finish too, and he finished really strong at the end of that round.
Top 5 BGA PGA.
He's been great.
I think it's been enough in my mind to put him over. So he is
So he's definitely better than Spieth and Day in your mind.
No, I have Jason Day is just better than him right now.
Okay,
enough of a resurgence there.
Then you got guys like Sergio Garcia, Ricky Fowler. You got guys like
Stinson.
I'll take Molinari.
Stenson, Adam Scott.
Yeah, yes to all of the above. I would take Molinari over Scott this week. I would take Molinari over Fowler this week.
Why over Ricky?
What about Matsuyama?
Probably, yeah.
Justin Rose.
Yes.
Justin Thomas is interesting, but I think I like
that is a bold take.
I know. Like I said, I'm sorry you guys aren't equipped for the truth, but
All right, so
he's 16th in world ranking, which I know is not. I mean, that's not really relevant. I think I can see an argument for him being top 10 for sure, and you can. A lot of these guys are close, but putting him over Sergio right now, you would really take him over Sergio in a tough spot.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
Matsuyama.
At that point, it comes down to fit in history. I think, if on a distance course, I probably want to have a lot of him next week just because it's so long and he's such an accuracy guy that it's not going to be a good fit.
All right, so Colin, if Ricky and Molinari were both the exact same price and the exact same ownership, you would take Molinari just straight up over Ricky?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these are my convictions. So at the very least, I do have him at the top of this field for sure. I think the reason why I'm not sweating that decision too much is because I think Ricky and Adam Scott are such popular players anyway, and there's just going to be such a they're going to be so chalk that I just need not that I need a reason to find much of a reason to fade them anyway, but I think Molinari is good top end with the savings you can get. You can do a bunch of things. You don't have to go too far for value.
Yep.
You can snap up a lot more of you can essentially buy ownership where you can take a lot of those mid 8K guys that everyone's going to be off of just because they're too expensive. You can do a lot with that. But I think Molinari is I think going to be my top end acre this week in pretty much all formats.
I'm big on Molinari this week. I think in this field, in this course fit, I think he's right there as the overall top one guy. I think it's him and Ricky and Scott as the three guys I like the most. And I think I probably prefer Molinari. When you factor in price, it's 100% him. But
in fact, factor in ownership, Pete. Yeah, you think that Molinari would be the
he's gonna get owned, especially after Colin just went on and just they just basically I don't even want to say it's too vulgar.
It'll be less owned than Ricky and Adam Scott for sure, and that's really all I care about at that point.
That's fair. Do you think Ricky will be the highest owned guy?
Yes.
Okay. So Pete, what are your thoughts on some of these other guys in this range? I mentioned a second ago, we talked about this pre-pod. Phil does have an interesting dynamic where he has no reason to gear up for the U.S. Open because he is missing it to go to his daughter's graduation. He is really no reason to withdraw. He can just play this straight up. He's been playing really well. He's made he's hit value in 9 of his last 10. He has just a lot of really solid. Hasn't missed a cut in a long time. What are your thoughts on Phil as just a direct pivot from Molinari and Ricky and Scott?
Yeah, I like Phil. I definitely think he's going to be a good play. He always garners a good bit of ownership, and I think he's obviously in the news and has been playing well, so I think his ownership is going to be high. I do like Russell Henley quite a bit in the lower price tag or the lower end of the high end. Obviously, the missed cut of the Byron Nelson's disappointing, and seeing his price up where it is challenging, but he's played pretty well, and I think this is a overall good kind of situation for him. Outside of that, I definitely prefer Scott over Koepka. I probably won't have too much Ricky Fowler with the pricing. But, yeah, I think Molinari, Phil definitely, Scott, and Henley are the guys that I would be focused on with the most emphasis on Molinari, probably followed closely by Mickelson.
The only one that I could maybe disagree with it a little bit more is Henley. I think we're looking at the exact same thing, and I'm probably just giving it a different weight to you. If I did a heads-up bet, I'd still probably prefer Daniel Berger just a little bit. Berger has a little bit better history, a little worse fit. But I just
it's just a good fit for Henley. But yeah, I could see that. I mean, I definitely prefer those guys over freaking Horschel. I feel so stupid for taking.
I think. Oh well, I mean, like the Horschel redemption thing here is like he actually has some of the best history in the field here, so that's why. Not that I needed to complicate your decision again.
No, it's not complicating. It's just annoying.
Yeah, like we're like you. Oh no, there are guys. I mean, just like you look at the last 13 through 15, a 10, a 6, and 8 here. Like that's pretty. Like there's some other stuff. I mean, he missed it back in 09 and 11, but it's outside my window. Like dare I say, it's bordering on elite course history the last couple of years. Like Pete's favorite term. So yes, we've all been there where we resent having to go back to someone that's just like burned you before, and it's just like, just why do I have to put you in? Like that's how I feel.
I'm fading. I got some other guys that I like.
All right, I'll take your Horschel. That's fine. I'll probably end up having a little bit about him because like I think exactly what we're describing is going to put his ownership a little bit lower.
Yeah, I mean, especially after last week, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I like that call. I mean, after last week and the fact that he's 9.5 is, I think he'll have lower ownership than we might expect. All right, let's talk about some guys that we think might be like, chalky combinations with these top guys. If you want to roster Ricky, Adam Scott, Molinari, you're going to have to find some guys in the lower end. And this is the tough part. We can say, that we love all three of these guys, or we really love Molinari, but at the end of the day, you got to put together a roster, and I think it is a little bit tougher this week. Colin, I'll kick to you on this one. What are your thoughts on like guys in like the 7K range that you could fit with Molinari and that you like feel good about? I mean, that's the problem. Is like a lot of these guys are just there's no like really solid mispriced guys that I think, or maybe one or two.
No, not at all. I think the only one that's like, I guess like maybe mispriced, but I don't know if he's just like out of bounds for data range is Steve Stricker, who we talked about a decent bunch already.
Mm-hmm.
Like data's just not equipped for guys over 50 who just continue to smash. So like, I don't know what to do with him at this point. I mean, I have him rated pretty well, but at this point, like I also wouldn't be surprised if he's chalk. Just because people have caught onto it. He's starting to get touted a lot more. I don't know, like if I would play him in a format. No, the only one that sticks out for I'll go gung ho about it, which is, everybody's favorite golfer around here is Keegan Bradley, who's never played this before. I think he has a pretty decent fit for it. I mean, because he's been accurate at the very least. Going to have middling ownership for sure, but dude can get birdies in a hurry. So he's the only one that I'd get excited over in maybe the 7K range. The only other guy that's starting to play PGA events now is Peter Uihlein, who I think he's going to qualify as chalk this week though, which makes it a little bit tougher. If you want to go low owned, you may have to go to a rookie like a JT Poston or maybe a Xander Schauffele, where not only can you fit him in, but he's going to be lower owned for sure. So no blatant mispricing this week. So we'll see who ends up getting touted, which is I'm going to be really interested to see. So
I'll tell you someone that I like that I think might end up garnering a decent bit of ownership in the mid range. That's Kyle Stanley. I think people are starting to pick up on how well he's been playing, and he's a guy who's historically been very accurate and has continued to be accurate. So I think there's a pretty good reason for him to garner a good bit of ownership. So I like him a lot. I definitely am considering him big time for cash. But yeah, I could see him really starting to creep up. The other one that is interesting in the mid to high range is Kevin Chappell. What do you think about his ownership, guys?
I think it'll I have it hovering right around 20% right now, which I think is about right. That's probably in the fade territory for me, given that I can pick up unlike a couple other guys in that range. I think Rafa is going to be basically a perfect Kevin Chappell pivot. Never played it, but sets up decently well, and it's gonna have way lower ownership. So I like it as a quote unquote value play. I just think the ownership is going to be too high.
One interesting dynamic that I've noticed just sort of playing around in models and trying to prep for this podcast is, Colin, like, all right, in models, let's just sort by course adjusted round. So let's see the players that have done the best here. And you get, some of the top guys. Berger obviously only played it once, but won it. So he's obviously at the top. But if you sort by that, and then you sort of look below, like maybe the top guys like Phil and Ricky that have done really well, all of the guys that have done well over the past couple of years all just have miserable recent GIR marks, which is, I think, probably an important indicator for this week. So it's almost like just a weird dynamic where like the guys that have done well are also playing really poor golf lately. So it's sort of hard to really get excited about a lot of this like course angle for me.
Yeah, and that kind of gets into like one of the interesting dynamics we talked about earlier. I think it was for Harbortown, was like, what do you do when poor recent form meets like fantastic history? And is there that potential for like a revival narrative, right? Where like certain, like almost like history trumps like recent form and they're back at it. And I mean, for the examples that we talked about, the revival narrative panned out. And so, I mean, that's the, peak of results-oriented thinking and all. But I think we left it as if there's ever a place where history can just trump recent form, it's going to be on an accuracy instead of a distance course. Now, like that's a slightly different thing about like long-term versus, like recent GIR or something that like, are they not accurate lately? But like if there's anything that's going to be more friendly to revival, it's probably going to be an accuracy course. So if I had to choose between the two for this week, I'd like maybe still lean history, just because it's an accuracy course. But I don't know. I have no strong conviction behind that.
No, that makes sense. I think that makes sense. We'll see what happens this week in terms of what people say and whatnot. I do think that ownership this week is going to be really big, especially with this field. I think that, the difference between some of these golfers is very, very slim. And with the pricing being pretty efficient, I think this week there's going to be a big emphasis on identifying ownership. So in that regard, course history is normally directly correlated. So it's kind of a interesting little dynamic. I think people might tend to gravitate more towards course history. I agree with Colin in that regard, but I also think that it's going to go against it in terms of ownership. So curious. Colin, what do you think, Colin? I mean, like, I agree with you that variable is probably more important, but don't you think people are going to latch onto it this week more than usual?
There are a couple that I think you can still get good history that are going to be unowned. And man, are you going to like some of these names? Especially like the best guy I have under 6,500 is
Ches Reavie.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, no, Ches Reavie, and then my boy Russell Knox is kind of cheap.
Knox.
Like Knox is
opposite course history, opposite of a course fit, but a cheap price tag is JB Holmes if you really want to get
I never thought I'd see the day where Holmes is 6,800, and like I get it, and it's bad fit, but like man, is that going to be like? I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, like I play Luke List at this point on accuracy courses just to get the ownership down. So by the transitive property, I have to like at least have like be in favor of Holmes on some level. The other guy that like has a good history to boot and a fit, like, and it's going to be sub 1% owned is Roberto Castro, who we've seen tear up in certain spots.
Yes.
He is the ultimate leverage play.
We need to get back on that train of these guys from last year.
I know. Well, they need to do their part too, in all fairness. But like, if there's a week where like they can definitely get like fitted in, and like it's like you get the sneak attack potential with all of these guys, like it's probably going to be this week where like the high ends, practicing for the U.S. Open, they're back to grinding the tour mode.
I have no idea what happened to your boy, but Harris English.
I was just about to ask.
But he has become a total disaster. But
man! But so is Castro.
Yeah, like both of them. They've
been so bad, but their data.
I don't think Castro's been as bad as Harris English.
No, Harris English has been way worse.
Castro's at least he's at least making some. They're both missing a ton of cuts, but
Here's Castro's last.
I know. They're both awful.
Miscut,
they both miss
56 miscut. Yeah, they're both pretty bad. But you're right, Colin. They do have good history here, and they're probably going to be low owned. And I guess I think that was a good point by Pete, Colin, was that when these guys are so close, like taking a really strong stand on one of them is probably not like, like people I think are going to lock in on maybe some of these, cheap guys, whether it's Keegan, I don't know who it might be, but, really just pivoting to guys who are like, if they're close and there's variance, like you should always just take the lower owned guys. So taking Castro or Harris English or any of these guys that you think might be low owned, I think is probably the way to go this week.
Yeah, especially if there's like if there's anybody like under 7,500 that's just going to be like 15% owned, you're basically better off
just auto fade, yeah.
Like auto fade it and pick literally anyone else. I think the leverage you get is so enormous.
Who do you think that'll be? Like under 75, that would be that highly owned. I mean, do we think like JB Holmes maybe because of his name?
I don't think he's going to be that high. I think Peter Ullane is going to be like he's going to be high. I think like everybody who plays Euro, there's going to be like it's going to be the quote unquote like sneaky pick of the week, or like people are going to remember from Puerto Rico. I think 15.
What about Danny Lee right at his same price, who's been playing well lately?
He's going to be up. I think like I don't know if he's going to crack 15. Like I think he's going to be double digits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy that everybody loves to take as a flyer this week is Kevin Tway. Is it Tway or Tway?
Tway. He had been so good prior to last week, and obviously 77, 75. But like he was like one of the guys like no one talked about, but like had just made a lot of cuts in like really top 20s for a while. Yeah, he was a guy that I was really interested in last week, and obviously didn't pan out.
Yeah, I mean everybody's been on his bandwagon for a while, and I guess I'm not quite there yet. It's not. He's kind of like in that Bud Colley bucket where it's like everybody's on him, and like Colley at least I can understand because there's been like all these finishes that like people have latched onto. I guess it's the same thing with Tway, but like there's a lot of prior history here that like it just seems like it's like almost like overly flocking to recent form, and just like if you believe in long-term adjusted round. That there's like plenty, like without any like, subjective angle about like there's been some noticeable fix. Then like, I don't know, especially this week too. I don't think it's a good fit. He has subpar history here. But like, I don't need I'm fading him always. I'm extra fading him this time.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be too high on him this week. I think there's some other guys that probably are a better fit for this course. Last question before we get to some winners here. Pete, what are you doing with Berger? He's only played here once, but won.
I like Berger. I always have.
Where do you think his ownership will be, though?
I think he'll be pretty high with the course history angle. And also he's a pretty nice name relatively in the, low end, or I guess the high end of the second tier or the low end of the first tier. So I think because of where he fits into the pricing is his win, and just the name recognition relative to some of these other guys, I think he'll be pretty highly owned.
Yeah, Colin, any takes on Berger? I mean, he is interesting that he's a distance guy, and this is an accuracy course, but obviously he won here, so he's shown the upside that he has.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on Pete's page. Like, I think he'll be decently owned. I think he's cheap. Like, it really
is fun. Yeah.
It's a neutral price. Still probably a little bit. I mean, not as high owned as like say some of the other guys, but like it'll be up there for sure. I could see him maybe getting into a lineup or two, but like I don't know.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. I think we've gone through most of these salary tiers. So let's get on to some winners. You guys have any strong opinions on where you want to pick?
I mean, I think I'm incentivized to take last unless you guys like, because like
I'll go first
and take Molinari.
Of course, give me Molinari.
I don't know. Yeah, all right. Like, yeah.
Take it right from you.
Maybe Colin's just hustling us here.
I wasn't sure if you're gonna take it or not. Like
it's him and Fowler. Those are my top two. I think. Yeah.
And I'll take Ricky. Yeah, I'll take the other one that you don't want, Pete. So
all right, I guess I'll probably go. I guess like the history angle, and I'll go Koepka here. Like it's not a terrible pick. It's just I think he's going to be owned for sure.
Over Scott.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Okay. And over Phil too.
It's not that far off, but like over
Over Phil and Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what's our cutoff here?
Let's do below 9.
All right.
Just so we can't do Berger.
I'll go Kevin Chappell.
Okay. Okay. So it's back to me. Under 9 here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Stanley. I'll go Stanley.
I was going to take him or Cabrera Bello, so I will take
Take
Cabrera
Rafa.
Bello.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. We are going to be back next week. We're going to have just a massive amount of content, both audio, video, and then also written, of course. We'll have breakdowns and strategy articles for sure. Next week's schedule is going to be a little bit different, as we usually do for the majors. We're going to have a podcast on Monday. And then we're going to have a live show on Wednesday in evening, probably around 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time. We'll give you a definitive time once we have that scheduled with everyone. It'll obviously be us 3, and then we'll probably have another guest as well. And that'll be our live show. We'll talk about whatever is sort of important, whether it's line movement, weather, or guys that we have seen touted and we want to talk about ownership. So that'll be good. But we're really excited for the U.S. Open. Always fun to talk majors, especially with all the content and stuff we have. So good luck this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week for the U.S. Open.